Let me start off with you, Prof. You are very much close to me now. So we normally try to just use the word as we wish, development in sports. We need to develop sports. We need to develop athletes. It's almost as if we've used the word so many times that it's lost its meaning. But what in its true sense is development when it comes to sports?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sicho. I think that the word development is a very big thing. So when you look at sports development, we are looking at the entirety of bringing all the stakeholders in sports together to get a product together. So when it comes to sports development, we are looking at education, we are looking at research, we are looking at entrepreneurs, we are looking at the athletes themselves, as well as the science aspect. And so for me, I think that development of sports means getting the right people, the right facilities in place to ensure that individuals are groomed to become what they want to become.
All right. Let me stay on you then and go to, because you are playing a very important role in your university. You are the director of sports there. What does your role entail in the university, and what are some of the projects that the educational system through the universities also undertakes in developing sports?
Well, a bit of clarification. At the University of Education, Winneba, I'm only acting as the chairman of the sports directorate.
Right.
We don't have a substantive director yet, but of course my duty is supervisory of a sort. I actually help with the day-to-day administration of the place. I connect with the technical man who is the head of sports, as far as the coaches are concerned, the administrator, the accountant. And so virtually my work is to liaise with them to bring about programs and management of the place, basically.
All right. But again, staying on you again, what are some of the projects that the university, we've said it again and again before, that we need to educate these our athletes as well. And if there's a whole department dedicated for sports education, what are some of the projects that these departments or colleges, undertake? And again, what are some of the challenges that comes with it?
Well, the good thing for me is that in my university, we also have a department, an academic department, health, physical education, recreation and sports, where we have academic programs. And so most of we liaise with the department to use the expertise from their end at the sports office. And so clearly we are looking at issues like athletes development, where most of our honorary coaches are coming from the department. We have issues like development, so we talk to the development office and then we try to get some things in place. So as far as I know, at the University of Education, Winneba, we have had a lot of projects trying to get some of our athletes to join the national teams. We have an area of expertise in the department where issues like sports and socio-economics are dealt with, issues like adapted physical education are dealt with, issues like sports management are dealt with, issues like human movement science are dealt with, and finally, we also think of curriculum development. And so, for me, it has been an interesting journey because these aspects have actually helped us to develop our athletes.
Right.
But the challenging thing I have got is how we are going to develop a state-of-the-art facility for the university in order that we can train our athletes scientifically.
Which is very crucial because infrastructure also matters, right, to give training to athletes. I'll come to you, Christopher, because of your engagement with UNICEF. And we're also looking at, if like, the broader topic of sports for development. Now, with your role at UNICEF, what strategies do you at UNICEF employ with sports for development?
All right, thank you very much. I think as most of us know about UNICEF, our mandate is to ensure the rights of the child is adhered to, and it is one of the key UN agencies. And so when you look at, and so when you look at the sustainable development goals that we are all working towards achieving, I think you can get some direct over 7 of the targets that specifically addresses the needs of the child. You can think of the target 3, good health and nutrition. You are looking at 4, quality education, 5, gender equality and all those stuff. I think I will be very much biased to stay on the education angle.
Please.
So UNICEF sees sports for development as a very strategic tool and approach to addressing or achieving some of these targets. And my role has directly been around implementing initiatives around promoting safety in the school environment. I also lead on educational technology with UNICEF, as well as education in emergencies. And I lead on how I utilize sports for development to advancing these roles. So I can give some specific instances. For instance, we have been working on how to ensure that children are behaving in a particular way so that the school environment becomes safe for both the students and the teacher. And we know that to behave in a particular way, we need to get the root causes of misbehavior. And addressing these, you need to also be strategic in developing good resources. And so I think together with the University of Cape Coast, University of Education, we developed the Sports for Safe Schools manual that aligns with the curriculum, and that as children are playing a particular activity, they are also learning certain key competencies, like turns taking, respect for each other, respect for time, and all the other competencies that you can think of. So UNICEF really utilizes sports for development, not only to advance intervention on education. We have used sports for development to promote hand-washing behavior. So it's, sports is a very strong mobilization tool. And so once we say, okay, we're doing football for wash. Football, hello? Okay, I think I can be audible enough. I have this strong voice as well, so don't worry. So initiatives like, football for wash, where we support from the government, from Netherlands and UNICEF in partnership, just to promote hand washing, behavior. And we saw that this became very critical during COVID, that everybody should wash their hands and other things. So we use sports to promote a lot of initiative as at UNICEF. And my role is to, technically, coordinate and lead, some of these initiatives. And of course, inclusivity is one of the biggest things that you can also think of, that UNICEF is a pro in country. So we're looking at an inclusive sports for development package. And so when UNICEF is approaching this in a strategic way, a school, you should look at all the different abilities in the school. There are children with mild and moderate disabilities who are mainstreamed in the school system. And so when you are giving like sports supplies, you are not looking at only the regular footballs. You should look at also football with rings and other things, just to ensure that every child in the school environment participates effectively. They are learning, they are becoming active. And of course, I'm sure all of us gathered here know the importance of sports to physical health and other things. So yeah, basically, this is for now. Yeah.
There was another angle to this. Okay, let me come to you before I go to Olufemi for that one. We cannot run away from it that it's a fact that in Africa, unlike maybe some parts of Europe and America, there is a very close synergy between sports and education. However, in Africa, there is sometimes a disconnect. It's almost as if there's a perception that if you want to be an elite sports person, you can't be successful. It can't be successful in academia. If you want to be successful in academia, you can't be an elite. It's almost like something has to give. With UNICEF and the way you are propagating sports for good, how do you hope that Africa can merge sports and education?
Okay, so I think in 2019, UNICEF Office of Research, Innocenti, worked with Barcelona Football Foundation and to develop a particular data and research around sports for development. And one of the key strong findings that came out from the report was that direct linkages for sports participation and performance. But this was really seen in more of the high-income countries, because you should look at what you can contribute to and what you can attribute to the participation in sport. I think in Ghana here, this whole trajectory of perception is something that is worrisome, and unless we make conscious effort to catching the children right from the scratch, and so I'm talking about the education part. We are looking at the kindergarten. You can look at the crèches and other things, but those are not directly within the Ministry of Education. So at kindergarten, we need to start and consciously initiate sport initiatives within that space. And ensuring that children participate in sport, also you are looking at the holistic approach where parents are core in the various engagement processes, where core stakeholders are there. So UNICEF's approach to bridging this issue of perception and other things is to look at the holistic approach to sport development. At national level, we work at the Ghana Education Center. We have Sports for Development Manual. We have the guidelines that thinks with the physical education, let's say curriculum and other things. When we implement at the sub-national level, we utilize structures like the parent-teacher associations, the school management committees. You have your district education oversight committee. So all these sub-level stakeholders need to be conscientized that sport is not just about going to play. It's really more than that. Because through sports in the school environment, you are learning a couple of things, because there are different learning styles. There are some children who want to see and they have learned. Others want to see and touch. The others, after touching, they want to play. Those are the kinesthetic people. And utilizing sport, you can address the needful competencies and needs of all these learners. But the question is, are our parents, are those key stakeholders who need to support drive this aware of this richness that sports for development can bring to the life of the child? So I'm sure even within the education system, where you go to a school, a head teacher feels that physical education lessons is
almost a waste of time.
It's optional. So we want to perform very well in the BC or great weather, and so sport has to give. Yeah. And so you need this kind of a whole systems approach to delivering and capacity building, continuous engagement of these key stakeholders. UNICEF has been really working with these stakeholders just to change the mindset.
Right. Thank you very much for that one. Let me come to you now, Olufemi. When I was doing my research about you and knowing how much experience you've got, I put this question down for you. I'll try and read it out. I just needed your thoughts on this one. I'm sure everyone here would also be keen on knowing that. So, given your 20 plus years experience, in business development, marketing, communication, and strategy, as well as your role as the technical consultant at the sports industry working group, how are sports for good seen in Africa transformed over the years? And are there any notable institutions or projects that you know of?
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be in this conversation. Particularly, I think there's a particular reason why I'm in the middle, because I have the education person there and I have the development partners there.
Perfectly poised.
Who, over the years, have been the people behind the narrative on the continent as per sport for development, or what we call sport for good. But one major challenge that we've had over time, and it is the reason why I can allude to the fact that the president of Ghana, NOC, said in his opening speech that we don't have athletes at the grassroots any longer, is the fact that in some of these conversations, there has not been this deliberate shaking of hands between the sustainable legs for physical education. I use that word deliberately, and sport. We've confused ourselves with sport for development and sport and development. We've also confused ourselves with physical development and sports. Those unpacking need to be properly done on the continent.
Can we unpack them now here?
Okay, so he talked about the fact that they would use sport to do hand washing. at the school level. At the school level, how many people are being attracted to that conversation? Probably they're going to be going to like 10, 15 schools. But you and I know that from childhood, the people who did physical and health education will tell you that the journey starts from 3 to 5, 6 to, and like that. And at each of those pedestrians, a child learns one basic thing that makes him either a sportsman or a sport enthusiast.
Right.
Until we go back to that, we will not benefit from what sport for good is about. So a lot of the development partners, they come to Africa. GIZ, they talked about developing facilities. Swiss Foundation, they talked about different conversations. UNICEF. We need to bring all this conversation into an evidence-based conversation that then bring out a particular policy conversation that then help sport at the end of the day. If we continue talking about UNICEF, recently UNESCO just launched a Fit for Life conversation. What does it mean to Africa? Africa has a conversation, at the African Union about safeguarding kids in sport. He talked about it. What does it mean to go into the next level to become a sport person? Because if you insult a child at a particular age, he might decide not to be part of that sport again.
Yeah.
And we will lose the benefit of that child becoming an elite athlete. Unfortunately, because of some of this sport washing, I use that word deliberately, we are losing that generation. Everybody is just focusing on going to become an elite athlete and leaving the in-between, which is where a lot of conversation happens. In Nigeria, we try to change that narrative by putting together a policy conversation that makes this shaking of hands so that when you want to come with your project, it is situated in an ecosystem that we want to go to, ecosystem development. But these are things presently that is not established on the continent. And if I start reeling out the opportunities that UNESCO has done, Sport for Laurels, and so many other development partners doing things for that platform, it has not translated much. But I think it offers us an opportunity to go back to the basics. If any international development agency wants to do a project on the continent, are you talking to the sports people? Are you talking to the education people? Have you considered what they have done? And bring everything into an evidence-based proposition that will help the advancement of inclusivity, the girl child, and everybody sitting in this auditorium.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Okay, but again, I want to pick your thoughts on the current state of affairs for Sports for Good initiatives across the continent. How close are they to achieving positive societal impact?
They are good to the extent of the narrative I painted earlier. Yeah. You understand? I'm yet to see any of their evidence-based publications. Excuse me. I think I need water.
Sorry.
Maybe we could have the conversation while
right.
Okay, get breather.
Yeah, I think there's one just there.
Thank you.
Right. So, we are talking about, sports for development. And as I said earlier, we generally have the conversation about what development is, what sports is. But when we begin to have the conversation about sports or what sports for development is, it's almost as if we are lost in between. The more reason why I'm asking you some of these questions and what your initial thoughts are for what the initiative for Sports for Good is.
So let's start with the basic. Let's go back to the schools. Let's give our children the opportunity to take the benefit that physical education provides. And layering on that is the fact that when they take that learning, it helps them in their middle age to become healthy. It's also a very, very important conversation, because if you've learned the right social, psychological, motor learnings, you will probably become very good, because you will have learned how to do physical exercise and become healthy. We know that in advanced country, they can actually tell you what contribution being physically healthy has done to reduce their health budget. We don't have those conversations in Africa. Yeah. And then we want to jump to the highest one. You want to produce an elite athlete. How? So it has to be followed in that sequence. And when you have mass people participating at the bottom of the pyramid, you will always end up with one athlete that will represent any country at the biggest event.
Stages, yeah.
Do you understand? But now we've left the basis. We're jumping to who wants to become the next gold medal in athletics, while the basis
are not been rightly
dealt with.
Right, thank you very much. Let me come back to you, Prof. And let's talk about what a global sports industry normally does, because when you look at the way some of them are thriving in the UK, in Spain, in America, in Germany, normally it's based on solid foundation of sports and business education, right? Like we see for the Johan Cruyff Institute, the football business academies all over the place. What is the current state of sports business education in Ghana, and how can it be done or improved?
Well, Sichu, I think that the bottom line is that in Ghana, how do we see sports? Do we see sports as business or as recreation? Now, if you talk about recreation is like play. So how would you expect people to pay to watch people who are playing? We are playing the ostrich. We believe that sports is business in Ghana, but are all stakeholders involved?
It's disjointed.
Disjointed.
Everybody's like doing different things.
Mr. Nunu said, how can it be possible for a country like Ghana, in our capital city, not to have running tracks? And yet you want to win the Olympic Games. And so you realize that there is a disconnect amongst academia, industry, and governance. And so for me, I think that there should be some kind of connection where an interface will be found. So we start long-term development. We lack that. Let's ask ourselves, a typical Ghanaian under-17 boy, how does he look like?
How did he look like?
A typical under-12 Ghanaian boy, how does he look like? And we play under-12. Yeah. And funnily, you see that these under-12 boys are kicking the same size of ball that Cristiano Ronaldo will kick. The same size of ball Messi will kick. The same size of goalpost Emmanuel will keep. The same size of field that N'Golo Kante will run. What are we doing to our children? So you realize that we do ad hoc things. We don't have any long-term development plan where we will say we are doing this. From here, we will go here. From here, we will go here. Currently, if you go to Morocco, Morocco has started something like all Moroccans outside Africa in Europe. There is a place they have built where they are going to train Morocco players. We have Mr. Laye Kingston here, very good footballer. Mr. Laye attended UNICEF with Osei and co. because they were part of the academy team that was selected and was based at Sports College in Winneba. Mr. Laye is here. Ask him what happened. Do we have that now? No. So it's like...
But Prof, where then does it start from? Where do we have to... It's not only a Ghanaian conversation. If we spread across a lot of the parts of Africa,
but you see,
where does it start from? Does it start from government?
I believe in charity beginning at home. Yeah, because this conversation we are having is for Africa. Yeah. But of course, we must start from home.
The host.
Good.
I accept that.
So what we need to do is to have long-term development of athletes in all sports, where we have the structures, governance, technical, administrative, and all others. If you don't do that, there will always be a disconnect, and we are not going to reap the benefits of sports. Imagine one Ghanaian player is signed $200 million.
These days, a lot of that money is coming.
Recently, we heard that they are signing Mbappe.
Yeah.
700 and something. And that was much more than the money IMF gave us. And so you see that sports is big. It's a very big business.
Yeah.
But because we have not consciously seen it as business, we are all joking. So the bottom line is that you must go to scratch. Start it. Bring all stakeholders on board. Because those days, a good coach was the one who could buy a ball and a whistle.
Yeah.
Yes, a good coach is the one who could buy a ball and a whistle.
It has some bit of organizational skills to put boys together.
Olufemi said it. You are going to school and your father tells you, go and learn, don't go and do sports. What does that mean? Basically, the idea of developing your talent is gone. And yet, when Ghana loses the matches, everybody cries. So whose son should play for who to watch? All right, so for me, the bottom line is that sports is big business.
Right.
And if you want to reap the benefit of sports, we must bring all stakeholders on board. And we must know the role that each of us will play. So for me, I think that's the bottom line. We don't lack talent. We don't lack technical men. We don't lack administrators. But the bottom line is that there's a disconnect among these key stakeholders. For me, that is the problem we have in Africa as far as sports development is concerned.
Massive problem, that is. But then I come back to you, Christopher. You are very close to, as the educational officer. What are some of these challenges that you face? You've got the idea of how you want to use your field to help talent. But if there is a disconnect, as Prof puts it, certainly you face challenges. What are some of these challenges? And once we know the challenges, then we know how to fix them. What are the challenges you face?
All right. So I will always want to put things in perspective. So for education, the entry point is physical education, right? So through physical education is for everyone in the class. When it's time for physical education, all of us participate. But sports usually is for the selected. You know, we are going to play football match, and so that's the perspective. Now, one of the key challenges I think Prof mentioned, the silo approach in delivering, in considering that the school system should be an entry point for most of the sport interventions that we do. And so silo approach implying that there are a lot of things happening, a lot of meat in the soup, things happening, yet we are not able to tell what is really happening collectively as a nation. So this challenge of uncoordinated efforts is there. The other thing has to do, we spoke earlier about the whole perception, about even the teaching staff, parents, about participating in sports. And this, for me, I don't see them, usually you see some of these things as bottlenecks, but it also gives you the opportunity to strengthen the kind of programming that you do. I think one of the greatest bottleneck I see within the sector is also about people seeing physical education and sport as not maybe an examinable, subject. And so I don't think anyone wants their child not to learn, science, math, and those things, because they know that at the end of the school year, this will determine your progression. But physical education, because it's really not examinable, this morning I had some very positive discussion with Prof, and I understood that something of that sort is happening. And so we also looking at another challenge of evidence and data, because, some of these, before you can inform decisions, it should be backed by a lot of research. And sports for development research within the space in Ghana is quite limited.
Is it for the lack of financing it or lack of personnel? Why is it limited?
Maybe it's about priority, right? So maybe because I know the academia is there, they can always commission certain researches within sports for development. The Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education Service, could have, as part of their broader plan, we want to deep dive into this. So I think the capacities are there, and development agencies, I know, are readily available to support research initiatives, but it's about prioritizing it and getting it done. I know recently we had a study on the barriers and enablers to physical education and sport implementation in the pre-tertiary education subsector, and you could see some of the findings. I wouldn't go deep dive into it because we are here to disseminate that report, but you could see some scary findings that comes in play with also limited infrastructure at the schools. So the public school system is quite okay, but the private, sometimes you go to a very good private school, they don't even have a playground.
A lot of them these days.
Yes, a lot of them. So some land and they've squeezed, physical activities, doesn't happen. And I'm not sure how comfortable people will be in doing your physical education lessons in the classroom with your decks and everything. You need to move out. Yeah. Okay, so the infrastructure, challenges are also there. Now, Prof also mentioned something, the age and leveled appropriateness of the interventions we roll out to promote sports for development. A kindergarten child cannot be playing case 5. Those times when we were growing up, we used to play, we didn't know the difference between the balls, but every ball you play. So those level appropriateness and disability relevant, resources are also very limited. Now, there are some schools that we engage and we realize a teacher wants to teach physical education and sport, but they have some handouts, manuals, and those things, but not every school have those modernized, or updated kind of resources. But I know government is doing a lot to really respond to these challenges. Right. The physical education unit at GES has been extraordinary, great to provide leadership to responding to this. But these are, some of the challenges you have. And I think it becomes so scary for development agencies that when I want to do a sports for development programming in a particular, when you realize that you need to come in with everything. And when
there's
you
no
look
framework there to build on.
Exactly.
So
start
from the scratch.
It's better to leverage on existing systems for you to roll out initiatives. But these are the systems that I think government is doing it best, but right. a lot more can be done. So these are some of the few bottlenecks. They are really not challenging because we can overcome it. Right. Once we implement. Yeah.
So
I would like to add to what my friend has said.
Please do.
The truth of the matter is we need a theory of change. he talked about compartmentalization of findings and what have you. So the narrative. A development agent has gone to do, for example, hand washing and what have you, using sports. After that project, have they gone back to find out how many kids actually were engaged at that theory of change conversation? Because we want to use sport to change how people wash their hands, right? After that, do you go back after 2 years, 3 years to know whether what you taught them in year one, they are still sticking to it? Because honestly, it's a very sorry part of our conversation. We start a project. We do not bother to interrogate what happened in year 2, whether we should continue or whether we should do a review. The next thing is another person comes, start another project. And in starting another project, the key stakeholders are not in the room. I can bet, and I'm not trying to put my friend on the spot, that sometimes when this development agency comes with this big project that involves sport, the Ministry of Sport is not in the room. The Ministry of Education sometimes because they see that as the people they listen to. But have you engaged with the owner of the schools, the parents? You understand? Because after all said and done, the kids are going to be in the school. Will the school continue to leverage that information? They will go home. Will the parents continue to reinforce the changes that you have tried to imbibe? So for me, a lot of this conversation needs to come together. Like Doctor said, bring everybody in the room at the onset. Know what it is that you are changing. And then please monitor what has changed or go back to the basics. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, just a quick one UNICEF works in a very systemic approach.
And I think that's what I just described.
Yes, and so we do not do the projectized way of implementing initiative. We will never do, because of issue of sustainability and continuous monitoring of the initiatives. So we work through the government systems. Yeah. So the system that has been established, we just support to empower the systems to deliver. We develop key tools and resources. I can sit back and still see that Ghana Education Service is rolling those initiatives out.
Because they've got the resources.
Exactly. So just we are very mindful about some of these things, and so we look at the systems.
Let me still on you, Olufemi, and let me just flip it as well, and let's have a look at how women's sports as well can come into this conversation, because in more recent time we've had great coverage, in this year with events of the ICC Women's World Championship, the Women's Netball World Cup, and now the FIFA Women's World Cup as well happening. It's had great, coverage across the globe. How can stakeholders in sports for good in Africa leverage on these moments where there's a big conversation about women in sports and women's sports to create a society where there's more respect, there's more acceptance and promotion of, women's sports?
Thank you. I'll take this from the perspective that for every child that goes to school, there is a big mother. Shout out to all the mothers in the room. You understand? And what we have found is the fact that mothers are very instrumental in whether a child goes forward in sport or stay out of that conversation. And I think based on those information, we need to encourage more parents' participation in the sport conversation. That way, we are going to encourage them to telling their girl child to remain focused in a chosen sport or in a physical conversation. We know that girl child have a bit of issue I use that word deliberately, please. Don't crucify me in this monthly cycle thing. I'm part of a network called Global Youth Movement that help to create ordinary sanitary towel. You understand? In a sustainable way for a girl child to make sure that she's comfortable during her menstrual cycle. This is must. You understand? These are conversations that I believe should be encouraged. And when they feel comfortable in those cycle of, there will be more participation. Yeah. One other thing that I've also seen is that in the other part of the world, we've talked about athlete activism. We need to encourage a lot of our girl athletes to take that gauntlet on the continent. I mean, and it goes from all the spheres, from media. We have fantastic journalists who have covered all manner of sports. They should come back to Africa and teach the girl child how to narrate stories. You understand? Yeah. We know that a lot of them will want to become doctors, they want to become physiologists, they want to become conditioning experts. We need some of those people who have gone through that space to come back and teach them. I mean, for example, a lot of knows that across the world, people like Serena Williams, they're investing some of their earnings in business to start up different institutions, different business that will corroborate what we're talking about, making our sports sustainable. Do you understand? And these are things that I believe, yeah, we host World Championship. What are the legacies? These are definite conversations that must be part of those legacy of those events that you talked about.
Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we'll take our questions for my panel members. If you have any, please show by hand. The ushering team will take you to our microphones, and then you can dish out your question. You can also be specific to who you want to address your questions to. So we've got Olufemi here, we've got Prof. Sarpong, we've got Christopher Nkrumah also on the far side. So please, questions now. Okay, so there's a hand here. Ushers, please. Yes. No, please. The ushers will take you to the microphone so everybody can also hear your question. By the way, if you just joined us maybe in the middle of the session, we were discussing sports for development or the sustainable development goals. On the panel with me is Professor Emmanuel Sarpong, the Director of Sports for University of Education, Winneba. Also alongside him is Mr. Olufemi Abioye, Chief Task Assigner, Dekaizen Worldwide Limited, Executive Secretary of the African Football Union. Also on the far side is Mr. Christopher Nkrumah, UNICEF Education Officer. Please, the first question.
All right, good morning. Good morning. My name is Adeshin Isaac. I would like to ask Mr. Abioye a question. Because for us to sustain a development in sport, we need to look critically into some aspect. The number one thing is this: the administrators of sport in Africa. I want us to discuss critically concerning corruption. Because if we want to sustain a development in sport, we need to look into the corruption aspect, transparency, and bad decision from the administrators. So I want to direct this question to Mr. Abioye Olufemi. Please, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Abioye, I hope you have that question there. I want us to take a couple of questions so that when the answer starts, they flow. Please, your question.
I am Lord Adoyobo of Changing Lives FC. My first question is to the personnel from University of Winneba.
Okay. Professor Sarpong.
Yeah. You mentioned that you try pushing athletes and players into the national disciplines. And my question is, how do youth from the rural parts of Ghana benefit from such initiatives? That is one. And then I know for senior secondary levels, they go around and then sort of pick up children who are not academically inclined but sports inclined. How do we get such children into your institution? That is because I teach in one of such schools where children are not as good academically, but sports-wise they are very good. And then my second question is to the man from UNICEF.
Mr. Nkrumah.
Yeah, you made mention of initiatives and programs that UNICEF rolls out with GES, the Educational Institutes. My question is, how, again, would schools in the rural areas benefit from such initiatives? Because I've been teaching in one side school for over 10 years, and I have not for once come across a program from UNICEF in my locality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question, please. So we've got two questions from the second person, one to Professor Sarpong and the other to Mr. Nkrumah. I think it's been noted. So I'll take your question, then we take some answers before we do the final batch of questions. Please go on.
All right. My name is Courage Kwamijide, PRO for MSK in Africa Football Club. Talking of developing football from the scratch, and then especially from the schools, I think one of the most reasons why guardians don't allow their wards to engage in physical activities, especially sports in general, is, football is a contact game. Not only football, other sports. And then I think there should be an insurance on board to at least cover for injuries and then other stuffs, so that the parents will be more insured when my ward is engaging in this and then there's a disability or a fault somewhere. There is an institution or something to guide, at least to help take care of the child. But then when there's nothing on board as such, I think they become scared to allow their, in quotes, ignorant kids to engage or involve in such contact activities.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the final question from here, I'll take the answers, then I'll go to my right-hand side to also pick some few questions, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Samuel Odronyako. I'm the administrative manager for the Ghana League Clubs Association. I'm here with my chairman, Mr. Kujofiano. My question goes to Prof. Prof, you talked about some parents warning their children, go and learn and don't go and play. And then you said, who should play and then who should learn or who should watch? Does the university have a program for students or persons who are very good academically but are not good in sports, and whether the university admits or has a program for persons who are very good athletes but are not good academically, so that when they are admitted, they do intensive sports and perhaps peripheral academic work, and others who might do very intensive academic work but do peripheral sports. Thank you very much.
All right, so those are the first batch of questions. I'll start with Olufemi. I think the first question came to you about corruption.
I think that question is a trap. But let's look at it from this perspective. One thing I find that is difficult on the continent is that where there, and the Bible talked about it, where there's no rule, you can't be caught sinning. So you put an administrator. I've been around for a while. Most, even in Nigeria, you cannot ask the president of Nigerian Football Federation, what is your 4-year plan? We will develop football. We will develop coaches. Everybody knows that. How are you going to do that? It's a conversation we never have. What will it cost you to do it? We never had that conversation. So how will you now say the man is corrupt? Because there's nothing to a yardstick to catch him or hold him accountable to. So let's change this narrative. Corruption is not Africa's problem. I hate to hear this corruption conversation. Let's have institutions. Let's put institutions to task. Let's all the stakeholders, let's not pretend it is them against us. Let everybody come into the room. Talk about what we want to do in 4 years' time. We want to go to the World Cup. I mean, just Google the 4-year plan for English FA. It's there on the net. They will tell you to the little 10 naira that they are going to receive. And so, the general public is free to then say, you said 10 naira. Where is this? Then you can then go to the next level. I mean, we have anti-graft and every other institution that can take over from there. But let's not demonize ourselves when we have not done the needful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then I come to, I think, Christopher, there was a question for you about UNICEF not reaching other places and, those.
Yeah, I think the question was for the gentleman's village or the rural area that he's from. UNICEF is not programming there. So just to mention that before UNICEF does any programming in any place, we do a lot of engagement with the data from specifically with the MS, Education Management Information System data, that's the annual census, and to look at key indicator depending on what is it that UNICEF is looking at based on the need. So it can be, is it the issue with access to education? Is it about poor learning outcomes? Is it about issue of gender inequalities? So where girls are not completing and another thing. So we do a lot of analysis to select the various locations for programming. And I will also want to put it across that whatever we do, we demonstrate how these things can really work, build evidence to inform government to scale up. And so it's not that we come in programming in every location, but then we can have 2 different rural areas, but you go deep down and you realize that there are some places that are really, really low on all the indicators like your gross enrollment, your net enrollment, your attendance, your BEC performance rates, and all those. So we look at all these things before we select.
Right.
I'm sure maybe we might not be in your, I don't know, the region that you are in. We might not be in your exact district, but we might be somewhere in your region. Yeah. Right. So, yeah.
And from the same person, there was a question about how people from the rural areas or communities could maybe also get themselves enrolled in some of these high colleges.
Well, I think the University of Education is the only university in the sub-Saharan Africa training teachers and sportsmen and women, because it is only in the University of Education, Winneba, that we have an academic program that trains sports coaches. We have diploma in sports coaching. We have degree in sports coaching. We are the only institution, even in sub-Saharan Africa. You see, what we do is we look at sports as a tool to develop individuals holistically. And so we go out of our way to go and even scout athletes from rural areas, bring them to the university, give them special dispensation for admission, and then give them scholarship as well. As we speak, the Sports Directorate of University of Education, Winneba, has 111 athletes who are on full scholarship. They don't pay anything. All they do is to come to school, do your sports. But you must be a medal-winning athlete. Now, for me, I think that all other universities are also trying to do this. But what you do is that if somebody is not good academically, We even try as much as possible to get them to the university, even help them register NOFDEC as private candidates so they can get admission to the university. As we speak, just last week, 2 of our athletes have traveled outside. One is going, I think, next week or so. And so at the University of Education, the athletes' welfare is what we deal with. You don't have to come from a rich home. From the village, every corner in Ghana, we get to reach you. So, Mr. Odru, I think that the University of Education, Winneba, and for that matter, the Department of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Sports, and the Sports Directorate, this is what we do. And I can mention notable names. We all know Mercy Tego. Mercy Tego is trained at the University of Education, Winneba. She did our sports coaching program. We all know Edna Yeke. Edna Yeke trained at the University of Education, Winneba. Didi Dramani, one of our products. Yusuf Basigi, one of our products. And so I can go on and on and on. Right. But the bottom line is that the University of Education, Winneba, sees sports as one of the key vehicles to develop individuals. So we don't joke with that. So there is always an opportunity for individuals who are good academically, who are not too good academically, for proper development.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then there was another question. I think you didn't mention to who. I think anybody could take it. That, well, I think you said it. So you made that comment. So I think the question was coming to you. When he said that you are saying that who should play for who to watch, and parents are not too sure if the awards in schools are safe when they take part in some of these physical,
You see, the understanding we must have is, let's take a secondary school of about 1,000 students. How many of them will play in our school teams? Maximum 200. So the remaining 800, what will physical education do for them? Most of the physical education teachers are only interested in those who can play sports. But when you look at the SDGs, point 3 is the anchor for all. Health and well-being. If you want to take away poverty, you do that so that people will become healthy and well. If you want to talk about environmental cleanliness, it is so that people will become well. Yeah. So for us in physical education, we must look at it this way. Physical education exists for 2 main reasons: for health development and for sports performance. Those who cannot do sports, we must engage them in physical activity for them to know the importance of physical activity. If I take my students through the rudiments of first aid, for example, and even there is an injury during active play, the students there can manage that situation. And so a lot of things happen during the physical education class. But because of maybe I would say ignorance or something, those of us who are in the practical-oriented courses, people think we don't learn.
Right.
But as we stand here, if I ask everybody to jump, when you jump and you land, I can analyze your movement and tell you that it was awkward. You say. And so what I think is that sometimes it is just because people understand what goes into other people's subjects. There's a man here, seated here. I mean, when you go to my department, he's the tallest of all our lecturers. He's the youngest. He's one of the top table tennis officials. He was at the Commonwealth. Mr. Francis is here.
Mr. Francis, please, can you give us a wave?
Yeah,
Let's acknowledge Mr. Francis. There he is. Thank you very much.
He's one of the top table tennis umpires in Ghana. He's in human movement science. So this morning when I came here, a guy who is in esports talked to me and I said, well, as far as esports is concerned, he's computer literate and very good in human movement science. So that's for him, talk to him.
Right.
He said, so for me, the thing is that we must know that if somebody is doing sports, it is not jumpology. Because that's what people call it, jumpology. It is not jumpology.
Oh, okay.
Even when you wake up in the morning and you want to free yourself, you don't just wake up from your bed and start walking. That is part of physical education. And so I think that probably it is just the fact that people don't understand what goes into physical education. And so we will continue to do the training, and we believe that as time goes on, a lot more people will understand
People will become
what we
abreast
do.
of what it means. All right.
Let me just add to what Prof
Briefly,
said.
please. We run against time.
There is also a need for us to change this jumpology narrative. You understand? If you will not insult an accountant, you understand? Please don't insult somebody who has used his knowledge to make you live well, to make you become an athlete that people support or people look up to. But the point must be made that on the continent, and I'm saying this is an evidence-based proposition, the professionalism of the sport has fallen short. In some places, they call it kinetic. In some places, they call it physical and health education. In some places, they call it sports management. Africa has a potpourri of nomenclature. But one standard thing is there's a call for everybody in this room to help professionalize the practice of both, be it physical education, be it games, because we don't talk about games any longer. I mean, Africa has had a wide area of games. Ayo, we have our indigenous games. We're not talking about them. And then we're talking about sports. So for me, one of the conversations we should take away from this pedestal is that we need to professionalize the practice of sport, and it starts from the university.
Right.
Let's have a common curriculum, which can then go to primary school, which can then go to secondary school. I mean, like you said, you find out that even in some tertiary institutions, there's no gym. So how do you want to tell people to live healthy? I mean, we're now not even talking about becoming a big athlete. How do we live healthy? So we need those informations to come into this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'll just take the three questions from here, but very briefly, the answers will also be brief so that we stay within time. Please, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kwesi Adomako Jr. I'm the founder of Pro Basketball Academy. My question goes to Prof. So with regards to sports as an industry or as a business, I think that what we need to consider is creating opportunities for the media, is creating opportunities for people, ticketing companies, is creating opportunities for the lightning guy. But what measures are we putting in place when we get that infrastructure of an ultra-modern facility? What measures are we putting in place to ensure that we have an audience so that we can sustain this facility, we can maintain this facility? Because without the systems put in place, how many leagues will be running? How many people will come watch these games? How many jerseys will be sold? If we don't consider these things, the infrastructure will be there, but it will run down because there's no revenue coming in to maintain these things. So my question is, what are some of the measures that we're going to put in place to ensure that when we have this facility, it will be able to run and be self-sufficient? Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, please.
All right. My name is Isaac Jojo Soga from UEW. I'm very happy about the conversations we are having. And then I would want to know that beyond this summit, this is to any of the panelists, beyond this summit, how far-reaching is this entity in influencing policy in sports development? I don't know if you get my question.
I think that question comes to the organizers. So
very well.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, there's that. I get that.
All right, hello.
You're down.
Hello.
Yes, hi.
All right, my name is Ni Ayi Redwan Ayi. I'm a football agent and a sports analyst, also CEO for Football Education Global. My question goes to the UNICEF man. I started a program. I started going to schools. I started teaching them football, what really entails. I started teaching them the local Premier League. They don't even know the emblems, the colors of which represent the local leagues. They have no ideas of this local league that we play. So I took it upon myself. I was going to the schools, teaching them Accra, Suffolk, this is their emblem, this is great, this is Kumasi Asante Kotoko, this is that, this is that. they have no idea. I spoke to National Sports Council, a representative over there. I want to take this case to the stadium so that they start watching football. I just want them to fall in love with football. And from there, I think nobody will even force them or will even push them to play the game like they want. They will engage themselves into it. So I want to ask my man from the UNICEF that, does UNICEF also want to support individuals, trying to help these kids engage into football activities and also fall in love with the game? I want to know if whether UNICEF, is in love with programs like this also to support individuals to push this game ahead. I want to know.
All right. Thank you very much. I think we've got one more question coming in, then yes.
Afternoon. My name is Lucinda Fletcher, and I just have a twofold question. I think maybe for the panel, and this is all three gentlemen sitting there, maybe you can guide us through a roadmap, a roadmap, steps to take for individuals, for clubs, for academies, for people doing leagues. What is the roadmap for you to assist them in bridging this development gap? Because as you said, it's broad, but it goes hand in hand with education. But obviously, there's a huge lack in bridging that gap. So, as you rightfully said, a lot of these people come with ideas, but there's no roadmap as to what funding is required, what steps do you want to take, how do you want to change the narrative of your sport, the field that you are in. So maybe if we can start communicating and if we can start, spreading proper communication channels and advising people on this is the roadmap that you need to follow in order for this organization or this company or this corporate to be of assistance to you to make sure that you reach your goal. So maybe that, and then just secondly, I think as a female and the monthly cycle that we are talking about, I don't think it's about comfortability. I do think that the league itself is a challenge when it comes to women's football. So it's got nothing to do with you being comfortable during or not during your cycle, but it's got everything to do with what level, what heights can you reach as a woman footballer in your very own country, except of going internationally. So for me personally, I don't think it's me being comfortable or not. It's literally just where am I going when I've reached the league here, which is the highest, which is not literally giving me a sustainable income. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So the first question went to Prof.
Well, I think it boils down to education.
Yeah.
Because there's this mentality of the Ghanaian about managing our facilities. We are still looking at sports as play. And so people are not investing into areas that are relevant. He was talking about the media. Is there a program in Ghana, an academic program in Ghana that trains media people for sports? I remember there was the tournament, hockey tournament in Ghana. And there is this term in hockey called bullying. Bullying. One journalist asked, but bullying is a big boy beating a smaller boy. I said, no, that is not it. It is a term it's like there is an infringement where the umpire doesn't know who caused it. Yeah. So it's like the one they call drop ball in football.
Yeah.
So people don't even have what it takes to do specific things. And so we must look at the curriculum, and God being so good, it's not like I'm trying to trumpet my people here, but we have one of the finest curriculum developers who has ensured that come next year, the physical education course at SHS is going to be externally examinable.
Right.
And so if you are going to secondary school, you will know that. This is a typical story that happened. I went somewhere to teach a group of women about physical activity and health. So after I spoken to them, the lady asked me, "Are you a medical doctor?" I said, "No, I'm a sports scientist." They said, my son who completed Akosomo International, who was supposed to be a medical doctor, says he wants to be a sports doctor. And my husband and I are saying we won't agree. But from the little I've seen here, I'll let him go. The boy is in the UK doing sports science. Dr. Pambo is here. He has PhD in sports science, sports medicine. And so it has to do with putting the right people in the right places, having the correct curriculum and going through it. I believe when you have these people there,
It can be done.
it doesn't have to be, I have been an old sportsman before. Because I've been an old sportsman before, I should be in charge of the estate. No. People should be trained for specific jobs as far as sports development is concerned.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, let me come to you and briefly, please, because of our time. The gentleman is asking if UNICEF is interested in partnering individuals who are already trying to promote sports in their own way.
Okay, I'll try to be as brief as possible, but know that I'm a teacher, okay? So, no. So, I think UNICEF is for every child, okay? And wherever domains that the child needs to thrive and become productive in society, that's what we are for. But the approach that you are using, we have over 40,000, basic schools. I'm not sure you can go to every school to teach, people to know the colors of clubs and other things. We need to look at a systems approach to doing this. We need to sit with the physical education and sport units within the GES so that it becomes maybe an integral part of whatever they deliver in schools. So that your presence might not be needed, but then these things will automatically happen in schools. So UNICEF has that strong convening power, and we sit with the development partner group for education. So please, we can engage after this conversation. We can make the needful arrangements to meet the key stakeholders within the sector to ensure that some of these things become part as a complementary package for now, because the curriculum just got final out some few years ago, and so it needs to be implemented at a particular space before the review comes in, so that we can integrate some of these. But we can look at the approach and look at it as a complementary package through the system, and it will deliver on it. Yeah.
Thank you. And I know a lot of you have questions to ask, but there's going to be a networking session where all our speakers are going to be in the same places, so you can very much interact with them, go to them, ask them all the questions, exchange contact that you want to exchange, and of course, that is where you can start finding solutions to the problems that you have. And there was that final one, which I'll bring to you. Speaking about systematic steps, the processes that we can go through, while we speak about sports for development, what has to be done from governance, education, from athletes. Can we, in a brief, a minute or two, can you put some steps to it? Or that is another conversation for a whole panel.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I will start from the gentleman that talked about what the organizer can do going forward.
Even for that, before you go on, organizers, after last year, there was a report that was put together from our findings, which were distributed to major stakeholders. The same will be done because we keep engaging them. So there's that. It doesn't end in the room. We keep engaging stakeholders. So
yeah, I'm going to that. And there's a particular opportunity that is on our hand. I'm happy that the local organizing committee of the coming African Games are in the room. And for me, that is a platform where you have all the African continent coming together to celebrate sports. It should also create an opportunity for diverse conversation that have started from this room this morning. For me, it is not by accident that the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement subseat or the secretariat is in Ghana. And I'm sure a lot of people in this room does not understand that there is a very important component of that conversation which has to do with trade in services. Do you understand? And those trade in services include, the 5 major ones include tourism, transportation, business services, lawyers and what have you. And those conversations are the things that we need to also focus on, which rub off on the business part of sport development on the continent. Because, for example, I've seen that, and it's a major challenge, when economic decisions are made, an average sport person is not in the room. Even across our institutions. I'm not sure, like in Nigeria, we have to converge what you call stakeholders engagement, where we brought into the room the Ministry of Finance, because they sit down, they make annual budget. Whereas sport does not run on an annual basis. You have to go to the Olympic in 2 years' time. Who is making budget? But you budget as if you are going to go to the Olympic tomorrow. You understand? These are conversations like we were talking about here. The Ministry of Education must be in the room. And the Sport Ministry, all of us coming together to fashion an approach to what we want to see in 1 year, in 2 years, in 5 years. And for the first time in Nigeria, the sport industry is part of the country's medium-term goals. And that is a conversation that across Africa we should have. You understand? So that when we are preparing for all African games, those conversations will have started earlier. You understand? And athletes, long-term athlete development, like my brother said, will have been part of that conversation. You will have earmarked what you will put in place for that to happen, so that we will then have a good event that is akin to what everybody is saying. Everybody talk about the Olympic. This is our own Olympic. Yeah. You understand? And we need those. Now we need to move away from this compartmentalization approach. We need to bring a collaborative conversation that leads to a net goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, everybody who has been here. All right, so the president of the Ghana Olympic Committee has a question, which I can't.
I'm going to do it real quick, and I think Professor Sarpong or my brother, Mr. Olufemi, can take it up. Now, do you guys think that this our WASI educational system has affected the development of our sports talent, especially in the secondary school? Because now you're there for just about 3 years. In our time, you're in the boarding house for close to 7 years. And you discover your talent when you're probably in Form 2, and then you take it all the way to the university. Do you think the WASI system has affected development of talent in West Africa? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nuno. Well, I think that there's an article I wrote regarding the weighing of athletes, even at under 15. You see, we have early developers, normal developers, and late developers. And so we still have individuals who could still become who they want to become within the 3 years. There are others who will develop a bit later. And these are the individuals probably who will be in the universities, technical universities, and other places. But the bottom line is that most of these kids don't even have the basis. There are individuals in the junior secondary schools who don't even know that they have any talent in physical education because of the way things are. And so for me, I think that it is not just about the WASI being 3 years, but it's just about us developing or scouting athletes at a younger age and developing them throughout. Because in those days, somebody will be in Form 1. Form 1 to Form 5. Somebody will be Form 1 and will play in the school team. Somebody will be in Form 5 and will not play. And so it is not the length of time, but what we put in, even during that short period of time. And so I think that it is something that all of us must put our hands on the wheel and ensure that if you are developing athletes, it begins from mostly age 9. That is where nerve branching starts from. So if somebody is 25 years and the person is now trying to become a sprinter, it wouldn't work. So I think that we must have that long-term development of athletes. When we do that, it doesn't matter where the person is, in school, out of school, the person can still be relevant.
Thank you very much, Professor Sarpong. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the panel for our first session today. Yeah, it was a discussion on sports for development towards the Sustainable Development Goals. I had with me on stage Professor Sarpong. There he is, please give it up for him. Also, Mr. Olufemi Abioye. And then there was the man from UNICEF, Christopher Nkrumah.